You know, sometimes life feels like you're standing in the middle of a quiet hallway, and every door you've ever opened leads to the same room. The same thoughts, the same disappointments, the same subtle heaviness that sits behind your ribs like a forgotten memory. You try to shake it off, change your routine, push harder, wish louder, yet somehow nothing really shifts. It's like walking on a treadmill. The scenery changes, but the destination never does. What most of us were never taught is this: reality isn't responding to your wishes, it's responding to your frequency. And as strange as that sounds, it's not magic, it's physics. When you stay emotionally loyal to your old fear, or your old scarcity, or your old heartbreak, you keep tuning your inner signal to the very reality you're trying to escape. It's almost as if you're calling the universe with the wrong number, then wondering why the wrong voice keeps answering. In the quantum field, every possibility already exists. Think of it like a vast ocean stretching in every direction, waves of potential outcomes shimmering, rippling, waiting for someone to step into them. You're not creating something from nothing. You're selecting, you're aligning, you're returning to the version of yourself who already knows how it feels to be whole, peaceful, loved, abundant. That timeline isn't hiding in the future. It's vibrating right now, just a breath away. But here's the simple truth that most people miss: you can't force your way into a new reality. That's the language of fear. Force is the nervous system begging for control. Force is the mind gripping the steering wheel so tightly, your knuckles turn white. When we push, we tense. And when we tense, our energy contracts. Imagine trying to catch a soap bubble with a closed fist. It pops every time. Real shifts don't come from clenching. They come from softening. The universe doesn't respond to your effort. It responds to your state. Maybe there were moments in your life where you tasted a glimpse of that state. When you fell in love and suddenly the whole world felt brighter. When one unexpected blessing arrived and you felt lighter, taller, more open. In those moments, you weren't trying to manifest. You weren't begging. You were allowing. You were aligned without even meaning to be. You were effortless, like a river flowing downhill, not a river trying to drag itself against the current. That's the invitation in front of you now. When you're stuck in a loop, it's usually because the emotional patterns in your body feel safer than the unknown. Even when the unknown could be beautiful, the old frequency feels like home. Even if that home is built of fear and worry, your nervous system whispers, "Let's just stay here. At least we know how to survive this." And so you keep recreating yesterday, believing it's today. But listen closely. Beneath the noise, there's another voice. The quiet one, the gentle one. It doesn't shout. It doesn't demand. It simply invites you to notice what you're broadcasting, not in your words, but in your breath, your chest, the posture of your heart. Reality bends toward coherence. When your thoughts say, "I'm ready," but your body says, "I'm scared," the universe hears the fear. That's why affirmations sometimes feel hollow. It's not because they're wrong. It's because the body was never invited to the conversation. So pause with me. Breathe into your belly. Notice the places where you tighten. Notice the stories your body is still telling, even after your mind has moved on. Softening those places, not fighting them, is how timelines shift. It's the emotional equivalent of turning the key inside a lock that's been stuck for decades. And as you soften, something extraordinary happens. You begin to match the frequency of the version of you who isn't waiting anymore. You stop acting like someone seeking peace and start breathing like someone who has it. Tiny choices ripple outward, choosing trust over panic, choosing presence over rushing, choosing openness over self-defense. One by one, the old patterns lose their gravity. Imagine yourself walking down that endless hallway again. But this time something is different. You're not pushing doors open with fear in your chest. You're walking slowly, calmly, letting your shoulders fall back. And suddenly, without forcing anything, one of the doors swings open effortlessly. Inside, the room feels familiar, not because you've been there before, but because a part of you has always belonged there. This is how reality shifts. Quietly, gently, like a sunrise you didn't notice until the light was already on your face. As you continue on this journey, remember, you are not changing the universe. You are changing the version of you that the universe is responding to. When you settle into a higher vibration, life rearranges itself around you. People treat you differently. Opportunities appear where they once collapsed. Old wounds begin to feel like distant echoes instead of fresh pain. And none of this happens through strain. It happens through coherence, embodiment, and emotional honesty. So tonight, when you close your eyes, don't ask life to deliver anything. Instead, I feel into the version of yourself who isn't waiting. Let your breath soften the edges of old fear. Let your heart open like curtains pulled back from a window. Don't demand. Don't chase. Just allow. You are not here to force miracles. You are here to become the place where miracles have permission to land. When you stop trying to be someone else, you finally return to the frequency your soul has been humming quietly beneath the noise. And when that happens, the loop breaks. The hallway opens, and the reality that's been waiting patiently for you finally has a doorway to step through. Keep softening, keep allowing, keep choosing the version of you who already knows. That's when the universe listens. That's when the field responds. Not someday, not eventually. Now, because you are finally vibrating where you were always meant to be. 1. The observer effect in quantum reality. You might not realize it, but every moment of your life, you've been standing behind an invisible lens. It's not made of glass, and you won't find it in your eyes. It lives in the space between your thoughts and your chest, in the quiet corridor of expectation. Physicists call it the observer effect, the discovery that simply watching a particle can collapse infinite possibilities into one concrete outcome. But here's the part. No textbook tells you observing isn't just something you do with sight. You observe with your beliefs. You observe with your fear. You observe with whatever melody your heart is humming when you approach the world. Most people think they are looking at life the way a camera takes a picture: neutral, objective, untouched. But no camera in the universe is truly neutral. Every lens leaves fingerprints. And the quantum field, the sea of possibilities that surrounds you, responds not to your words, not to your logic, but to the dominant energy you hold as you look at yourself, at your relationships, at your future. Imagine standing in front of a hallway lined with doors. Every door is a potential. You, the healed you, the prosperous you, the loved you, the confident you, the one who finally exhales. But the door you choose isn't opened by force. It swings when your inner observer expects to see what's behind it. If you deeply expect rejection, that door lights up first. If you quietly anticipate abundance, that one becomes visible. Reality listens more closely to your expectation than your desire. This is why two people can live through the exact same circumstance and walk away telling two very different stories. One sees disaster and confirms their worldview of scarcity. The other sees growth and confirms their worldview of possibility. The outside world didn't change. The observer did. Most of us inherited an observer shaped by old wounds. When something good appears, that inner observer squints and whispers, "Careful, this won't last." When opportunities approach, the observer shrinks and mutters, "You're not ready." And with that expectation, that tiny vibration of doubt, the wave collapses into the outcome you feared. Not because you are cursed, but because your nervous system was still observing life through the eyes of yesterday. There's no blame here. Trauma trains us to anticipate loss. Repetition trains us to expect sameness. But the field isn't judging you. It's simply mirroring the energy you offer most consistently. Think back to a time when you expected something magical, maybe as a child, on the morning of a birthday, or waiting for someone you loved. Your chest was open, your breath moved like warm wind, your shoulders lifted without effort. In that state, small miracles seemed to pour toward you, a surprise gift. Entanglement, a sudden stroke of luck. Why? Because your observer was tuned to wonder, not because you demanded more from life, but because you allowed life to show you what you already believed was possible. That same doorway still exists inside you. But today, many of us observe our future through the lens of our past. We don't look at what could come. We brace against what has been. Like a child expecting thunder even on sunny days. We hunch our shoulders and wait for impact. And the quantum field, ever faithful, gently collapses into the outcomes that fit that posture. Here's the beautiful secret. Though you can retrain the observer, not by shouting new affirmations over old fear, but by softening, by breathing, by gently widening the lens through which you expect the world to meet you. When you wake in the morning, instead of scanning for danger, what would happen if you asked your body, quietly, what might go right today? The shift is subtle, delicate, like turning a dial on an old radio, but the moment the frequency changes, a new channel becomes audible. And this is not metaphor alone. Neuroscientists have watched the brain fire differently when expectation changes. Heart rhythms shift. Stress hormones fall. Muscles s'enclenchent. The body begins to trust a future it cannot yet see. And in that trust, you become coherent, a word that means your mind, heart, and emotions begin to move like musicians playing the same song. Coherence is the language reality listens to. Think of expectation as a flashlight. When you shine it on fear, shadows deepen. When you shine it on gratitude, details appear where you thought there was only confusion. You cannot see what you are unwilling to illuminate, and you cannot receive what you secretly fear to touch. The observer effect teaches us you are not a passive witness. You are a participant. Your attention collapses worlds. Your breath is a vote. Your anticipation is a signature on a contract reality obeys. But you must be gentle with yourself in this practice. The nervous system doesn't transform through violence. You can't drag your expectation into a higher timeline by force, like teaching a frightened animal that your hands are safe. You must earn trust, moment by moment. Speak kindly to your future. Touch your uncertainty with softness. Let your chest rise like someone who remembers sunlight, because the version of you who lives in the reality you desire observes differently. They don't scan for what could break. They scan for what could bloom. They don't stare through the lens of not enough. They watch the world through the sensation of already happening. And as they observe, the wave collapses into miracles that feel almost suspicious at first. Doors open. People arrive. Synchronicity plays at the edges of your days like music leaking through a wall. The truth is, simple life has always wanted to give you more. It was only waiting for the version of you who believed you could receive without flinching. So tonight, notice how you observe. Not with your eyes, but with the tightness in your jaw, the speed of your breath, the story your chest tells when no one is listening. And if you find fear there, don't judge it. Don't force it away. Place your hand over your heart and breathe until your observer softens enough to see possibility again. Because when you change how you observe, how reality has no choice but to change how it appears. 2. Microalignment. The power of subtle shifts. There's a quiet truth that many people overlook, especially in a world obsessed with dramatic breakthroughs and overnight miracles. Real transformation rarely arrives with cymbals crashing or fireworks exploding. It moves like the tide, inch by inch, almost imperceptibly, reshaping the landscape while you're busy waiting for something extraordinary. Microalignment is that subtle tide. It's the gentle shift of breath, The softened thought, the quiet choice you make before anyone else can see it. It's the space where true change begins, long before the world reflects it back to you. Most of us were raised to believe that progress comes from push harder, do more, grind your way through. We learn to measure our effort by how exhausted we feel afterward. But exhaustion isn't proof of evolution. Sometimes, it's proof of misalignment. Imagine paddling a canoe upstream, muscles burning, hands aching, water slapping against your chest. No matter how fiercely you row, the current holds you. But turn the canoe just slightly, just a few degrees, and suddenly the river carries you. That's micro-alignment. You didn't change the river. You changed your angle. A single conscious breath is often dismissed as insignificant. How can inhaling softly change anything, people ask? But your nervous system hears that breath, like a mother hears the cry of her child. It immediately begins reorganizing the chemicals in your bloodstream, lowering the volume on ancient fears, telling your organs, we are safe right now. That one breath turns the wheel a few degrees. In time, those degrees become a different coastline. Micro-alignment happens. The moment you notice you're spiraling into panic, and you choose just once to pause instead of plunging deeper. It happens when your mind whispers an old story about not being enough, and instead of arguing with it, you simply say, not today. The field listens to that, because the universe doesn't measure your worth by how dramatically you overcome your shadows. It measures by the consistency of how you return to the version of yourself that remembers peace. Even the smallest shift in posture changes the frequency you broadcast. Shoulders down, jaw unclenched, breath flowing like a river that no longer tries to run uphill. These movements are not symbolic. They are literal adjustments to your electromagnetic field. Your entire body is an instrument in an orchestra called consciousness. Micro-alignment tunes the strings. Most people wait for motivation to strike like lightning. They wait for the perfect moment to start a new habit, to speak from the heart, to rest, to trust, to dream. But lightning is rare. Micro-alignment is daily. It's brushing your teeth with presence. It's taking one more sip of water when your body asks. It's choosing to say thank you not because you owe politeness, but because gratitude opens a door to a higher floor of consciousness. These choices sound small, like grains of sand, but build enough grains, and you create an island. Let me share something you might feel in your bones. The nervous system doesn't like dramatic change. It perceives big leaps as danger, even when they're good. That's why people sabotage overnight success. They outrun their own capacity to hold the new frequency. Micro-alignment, on the other hand, whispers to the nervous system gently, we're growing, but we're safe. It expands the container little by little, and one morning, you wake up, stretch your arms, and realize the cage you once lived in doesn't fit anymore. We often underestimate the power of small returns. Every time you slip back into old patterns and catch yourself kindly, you widen the gap between who you were and who you're becoming. The return is the repetition that rewires you. Not perfectly, not dramatically, softly, like rain carving stone. Think of waves brushing a shoreline. A single wave leaves no mark, but thousands of gentle touches reshape continents. Micro-alignment is like that, the future nudging through the present. Fingertips brushing softly until the fabric changes shape. When your thoughts nudge you toward worry, and you choose instead to ground your feet on the earth, that's alignment. When an old trigger tightens your chest, and you decide to breathe through the contraction instead of collapsing into it, that's alignment. When you walk into a room and let your shoulders hang open instead of curling inward from invisible shame, that's alignment. These moments don't look like miracles, but they are the hinges on which entire timelines pivot. The universe doesn't care if you meditate for 3 hours or 3 minutes. It cares about the energy you bring to the next moment. It cares about who you choose to be when no one is watching. Micro-alignment is the art of subtle becoming, a handful of seconds where you shift from fear to curiosity, from reaction to response, from defense to openness. And the beauty is, you don't have to master this. You only have to remember. Remember that each small shift is a vote you cast for the reality you want to live in. One breath is a vote. One softened muscle is a vote. One compassionate thought about yourself at midnight is a vote. Over time, those votes add up. They gather like constellations, mapping a new sky you can navigate by. Maybe tonight, instead of judging yourself for not being further along, you can place a hand over your heart and whisper, "I'm learning to turn my canoe." And your nervous system, hearing the softness of your voice, will begin loosening its grip on the oars. Because micro-alignment is not about becoming someone else. It's about remembering who you were before fear taught you how to shrink. It's the gentle unwinding of old stories, the quiet exhale that tells your life, "I'm ready to be carried." And eventually, without you noticing exactly when it happened, the river that once held you still will begin to move beneath you. Not because you forced it, but because you turned the angle of your being just enough for the current to recognize you. That's the power of subtle shifts. That's how small becomes enormous. That's how timelines bend. 3. The strongest signal comes from the body. There's a moment in every spiritual journey when you finally understand that life has never been listening to your words. It has been listening to your body, your muscles, your heartbeat, your breath. These are the true transmitters of your frequency. You can whisper 1,000 affirmations into the mirror, but if your shoulders are curled forward in fear, if your stomach is tight with anxiety, the field will respond to the tightness, not the poetry. This isn't punishment. It's precision. The universe isn't fooled by vocabulary. It isn't impressed by how eloquently you can say, "I am abundant." When your chest flinches, every time you check your bank account, consciousness responds to coherence. And coherence is not spoken, it's felt. Most people live from the neck up. They build castles in their minds, while their bodies are still trapped in the ruins of childhood fear. They try to manifest love, while their ribcage holds the memory of heartbreak. They declare confidence, while their nervous system bristles with the tension of old humiliation. And then they wonder why nothing changes. But imagine trying to tune a radio, using only your thoughts, no matter how beautifully you describe the station you want. Unless you turn the dial with your hands, the music will never change. The body is that dial. It is the interface between thought and reality. It translates vibration into form. Your heart emits the strongest electromagnetic field in your body, 5,000 times stronger than the brain's. It pulses a silent signature into the world around you. When you feel gratitude, appreciation, or ease, your heart beats like a smooth drum, tapping a steady rhythm. The field hears that harmony and mirrors it back through opportunity, synchronicity, connection. But when fear coils in your belly, your heartbeat becomes scattered, your muscles contract, your breathing shortens, like someone trying to sip air through a cracked straw. This contraction broadcasts a message: I am in danger. I am not ready. Even if your mouth says otherwise. That's why spiritual growth asks for courage, not to fight the world, but to feel the places inside your body that have been holding tension for decades. Those tight places are temples. They are not your enemies. They are protective walls built by a younger version of you. And when you soften them slowly, respectfully, you send a signal louder than any spoken request. I choose safety now. I choose openness. The body doesn't speak English, or Vietnamese, or any language you learned in school. It speaks in sensation. Pressure behind the ribs, heat in the cheeks, a knot in the throat, a clenched jaw. The field reads these sensations like sacred script. It hears every tremble in your diaphragm and every flutter in your nervous system. Think about how your body reacts to subtle things. A text message from someone you love. Your stomach floats. A bill arrives unexpectedly. Your jaw tightens. You see an opportunity you want, but feel undeserving of. Your chest hollows slightly toward the spine. These micro-reactions are the true prayers you're offering. Because prayer isn't what you say with your lips. It's what your fascia whispers when no one is around. The tragic thing is, many people shame their bodies for these reactions. They say, "Why am I nervous? Why am I still afraid?" But shame only deepens the tension. It's like trying to polish silver by hitting it with a hammer. What your body really needs is presence, breath, permission. When you slow your breath, your ribcage expands like a door being opened. Your diaphragm relaxes. Your heart rate steadies. In that moment, the body registers, "I am safe enough to receive." And the universe listens to that sentence more than any affirmation ever written. You might notice the difference right away when someone speaks from their body rather than their mind. When a person says, "I'm fine," but their shoulders curl inward, you can feel the lie. Their body is whispering their truth for them. Now imagine the quantum field doing the same thing. It feels your vibration. It hears your tension. It isn't judging you, but it is responding. If you want a new reality, you must become a new sensation. This doesn't mean performing positivity. It means inhabiting your body differently, like a tree growing roots into new soil. You must practice breathing into the tightness instead of turning away. Feel the weight in your chest until it melts into warmth. Notice the shaking in your hands and whisper to them softly, "You are safe now. You can rest." These small acts of attention change your life more profoundly than any vision board. Because once your body believes you, reality follows. Wanting abundance while your body braces for scarcity is like pressing the gas and brake at the same time. The engine revs, but you don't move. But when your muscles soften into trust, even a little, the brake lifts. A body that relaxes becomes magnetic. It stops chasing. It starts receiving. Think of a flower opening to sunlight. It doesn't strain. It unfolds. And through that unfolding, bees arrive. Pollination happens, and life expands. Your body is your flower. And here's the deepest truth. The body remembers what the mind forgot. It remembers the ache of abandonment, the freeze of humiliation, the shock of betrayal. Those memories shape your vibration more than your conscious intentions ever will, until you learn to feel them rather than fear them. Healing isn't thinking your way out. It's breathing your way through. So the next time you speak an affirmation, place your hand gently over your heart. Feel the skin warm beneath your palm. Ask yourself, do my muscles believe this? Does my heartbeat agree? If the answer is no, soften, not scold. Meet the tension, like a parent meets a frightened child slowly, patiently, lovingly. Because when your body trusts, the universe responds. When your heartbeat steadies, life steadies. When your muscles unclench, doors open. When your breath deepens, destiny exhales. Words can only decorate your desires, but the body decides whether the door will open. So listen, breathe, unwind. Let your flesh learn what your mind already knows. That is how the field hears you. That is how reality changes. And that is how you return to yourself. 4. Environment. Quantum entanglement. There's a quiet truth we often overlook while trying to grow. To soften, to rise into a new version of ourselves. You don't exist in a vacuum. You are not just shaping your reality through your thoughts and your breath. You are also being shaped by the people you sit beside, the rooms you linger in, the conversations you tolerate, and the emotional climates you silently endure, like two strings resting close together. If one vibrates long enough, the other begins to hum the same note. Physics calls this quantum entanglement. Life calls it influence. Whether you notice or not, you are constantly absorbing signals, tones of voice, subtle attitudes, beliefs buried inside casual comments. When you're around people who are chronically afraid, your nervous system tightens in empathy. When you walk into a room where resentment lingers like thick smoke, your heart beats just a little faster. And when you share space with someone who has settled for less, it becomes easier for you to lower your own standards, just a fraction at a time, until one day you wonder why your dreams feel so far away. This isn't weakness, it's physics. When particles become entangled, distance becomes irrelevant. Touch becomes optional. One shifts, the other echoes. Human connection works in the same invisible way. Sit with someone who spends their days complaining, and soon your own thoughts will gather the same storm clouds. Share too much time with someone who constantly expects disappointment, and slowly your chest will brace for impact before joy even arrives. You've probably felt it before. You spend the afternoon with someone who sees the world through suspicion, and by nightfall you're questioning your own decisions, doubting your own good fortune. Or you reconnect with an old friend who hasn't grown since childhood, and within minutes you feel yourself shrinking, speaking their language again, wearing old emotional clothing that no longer fits. This is familiar frequency pulling you backward, like gravity. Familiar doesn't always mean safe. Sometimes it just means practiced. Your nervous system loves the familiar, because the familiar never surprises it. It knows how to brace, how to contract, how to anticipate the pain. So even when you're bored, even when you're aching for more, you find yourself drifting back toward old environments and old people. Not because you want them, but because your cells remember how to survive them. That's quantum entanglement. But here's where the story changes. When you begin to raise your vibration not through force, but through softness, the old environment feels heavier. The jokes that once made you laugh now feel empty. The gossip that used to excite you now tastes bitter. It's not arrogance. It's resonance. You're tuning into a frequency that the old environment simply cannot broadcast. Some people will say, "Don't forget where you came from." But you're not forgetting. You're evolving. And plants do not apologize when they grow toward the sun. You see, when you change your internal state, breath deeper, shoulders softer, heart more, open the field around you, reorganizes, and sometimes that means certain people drift. Sometimes it means you feel like a foreigner in your own life. It's uncomfortable, yes, but discomfort is the first language of transformation. There's an old saying, water always finds its level. Energy does too. Imagine a tuning fork struck gently. If there's another tuning fork nearby tuned to the same frequency, it begins to vibrate without being touched. But if the forks are tuned differently, no matter how long they sit together, the second stays still. Humans are tuning forks. And when you hold a coherent vibration, one of trust, gratitude, self-respect, the people around you either rise to meet that tone or they stop resonating entirely. Quantum entanglement doesn't only bind you, it frees you. 2. When you spend time with people who believe in possibility, your chest feels wider. When you share space with someone who listens more than they speak, your mind quiets. When you laugh with someone who doesn't measure your worth, your breath becomes softer. These are signs of healthy resonance. The body knows. Pay attention to how your heart feels around someone. Is it expanding or guarding? Pay attention to your spine. Does it straighten or curve inward? The body doesn't lie. It tells the truth through sensation long before your mind constructs a sentence. And sometimes, the most painful realization is this: you can't heal in the same room where you learn to shrink. But leaving doesn't require rage. You don't have to slam doors. Healing rarely demands grand exits. Sometimes, it looks like spending less time in places that make your soul feel cramped. Sometimes, it sounds like Keter conversations. Sometimes, it's as simple as letting the phone ring. People who love you won't ask you to stay small so they can avoid their own reflection. A healthy environment doesn't punish growth, it celebrates it. If the ones around you feel threatened by your expansion, that's their entanglement, not your failing. And here's a softer truth. Some people aren't meant to travel with you into your next timeline. They are chapters, not entire books. Honor them, bless them, let them go when the page turns. As you rise into coherence, you'll begin attracting those who breathe from the same center, who look at life with eyes unafraid of wonder. Their presence will feel like sunlight breaking across your back after a long winter. Around them, you will not shrink, you will unfold. So tonight, ask yourself gently, who am I entangled with? Not in theory, but in sensation. Who makes my breath shallow? Who makes my voice softer than my truth? Who leaves me feeling like I must earn space? And just as importantly, who makes my lungs ache with relief? Who lets me exist without performance? Your environment shapes your vibration more than your intentions ever will. Guard your frequency like tender fruit, ripening on the branch. Not out of fear, but reverence. Because you are becoming someone your old surroundings may not recognize, and that's not betrayal. That's growth. In the quantum field, entanglement does not fade instantly. It loosens slowly, thread by thread, breath by breath. But one day, you'll wake up and realize the weight you've been carrying was never yours. And the moment you set it down, your frequency rises not with noise, but with quiet certainty, and as your vibration changes, the world around you rearranges. Not because you demanded it, but because resonance is a law older than language. Walk gently, choose environments that let your nervous system rest, and watch reality reflect the version of you who finally trusts their own light. 5. Subtle resistance. There's a kind of resistance that doesn't scream. It doesn't knock you down or announce itself proudly. It moves quietly like a whisper behind your ribs, like a soft hand tugging at the hem of your shirt. Most people don't recognize it for what it is. They think they're being responsible, realistic, even mature. But subtle resistance is the invisible thread that keeps you looped inside the life you've already outgrown. It shows up first as delay. I'll start tomorrow. I'll speak when I'm ready. I'll take the step once I'm sure. But tomorrow arrives dressed as yesterday, and readiness never feels like a completed checklist. So you wait. Not because you're lazy, but because your nervous system is protecting you from stepping into something it can't predict. It also shows up as risk aversion. Your mind creates maps of worst-case scenarios, warning you of cliffs that don't exist. Your heartbeat accelerates at the thought of change. Your breath shortens in the presence of uncertainty. You call it intuition, but often, it's old fear wearing a new outfit. And then there's the most cunning disguise, practicality. People will applaud you for this one. They'll nod approvingly when you shrink your dreams down to something bite-sized and manageable. Be realistic, they say, as if reality isn't constantly being bent by consciousness. So you trade your calling for something stable. You bury your spark under adult duty. You forget that the safest life can also be the smallest. Subtle resistance doesn't come from a lack of desire. It comes from a body trained to survive, not to expand. Your nervous system clings to what's familiar, even when the familiar is painful. It's like a child holding on to a burning blanket because it's the only one they've ever known. Safety feels soothing, but if safety becomes a cage, comfort becomes confinement. Consider how your body reacts when you imagine changing something significant. Maybe your throat tightens, your palms sweat, your jaw tenses. These physical signals aren't random. They are messages from an ancient biology designed to protect you from lions and cliffs. Yet it hasn't learned the difference between a new career and a predator's shadow. The body does not recognize growth. It recognizes unfamiliarity. Subtle resistance often sounds rational. I'm not ready. It's not the right time. What if I fail? But listen closely. Many of those thoughts are not the voice of wisdom. They are the echoes of past wounds. Speaking through the nervous system, a child who once felt unprepared grows into an adult who rehearses doubt like a language. A heart that once felt rejected builds walls so high it forgets how to see the sky. Sometimes resistance shows up as sudden fatigue. Notice how tired you become just before taking an important step. That's not coincidence. It's the nervous system shutting down to avoid perceived danger. Other times, resistance arrives as distraction scrolling, snacking, tidying the same shelf 3 times, not because you truly care about crumbs and fingerprints, but because your body is buying time. And yet, resistance is not your enemy. It's a guardian that has overstayed its welcome. It's trying to protect the version of you that no longer needs protecting. Instead of attacking it, try listening to it. Sit with the contraction in your chest. Place your hand against the tightness. Whisper, "I know you're trying to keep me safe." Notice how the tension softens when acknowledged instead of shamed. When you try to bulldoze subtle resistance with force, it pushes back twice as hard. But when you meet it with presence, something shifts. The body learns that expansion isn't danger, it's possibility. Each time you take one small aligned action, the nervous system rewrites its definition of safety. It begins to trust that you can handle more than it once believed. Think of resistance like a nervous horse. If you yank the reins, it panics. If you move gently, with breath steady and voice calm, it follows. Growth is not accomplished by overpowering your biology. It's created by regulating it, by breathing deeper when fear contracts your lungs, by relaxing your shoulders even when uncertainty knocks at your door, by stepping forward slowly enough that the body can walk with you, not against you. When you reach for a dream, subtle resistance will point out every crack in the road. It will tell you stories about your unworthiness, your timing, your lack of resources. But look closely, those stories are stitched together from memories, not predictions. Your mind is replaying the past in high definition, mistaking caution for clarity. People often ask, why haven't things changed if I want them so badly? The answer is simple. Wanting is a mental activity. Allowing is a bodily one. You cannot receive what your body cannot hold. If your chest tightens at the thought of success, the field responds to the tightness, not the desire. Resistance is merely the body asking one gentle question: are we safe enough for this? So the work becomes not forcing change, but increasing safety, with breath, with slowness, with tiny acts of self-permission. Approach your resistance like an old friend who doesn't know you've grown. Let your nervous system learn that joy won't collapse the roof, that abundance won't abandon you, that love won't suffocate you. Over time, you'll notice something quiet but profound. The hesitation becomes curiosity. The fear becomes excitement. The contraction becomes space. And the body begins to walk toward the unknown without bracing. Subtle resistance loosens not in a single moment, but in 100 small ones, like knots unraveling under warm fingertips. One day, you'll wake up and realize the weight that once held you still is no longer there. You will breathe deeper, stand taller, speak truer, not because you conquered resistance, but because you taught it how to rest. Remember, growth is not the absence of fear. It is the soft willingness to move anyway. Holding your nervous system like a child learning to walk. Treat your body gently. Invite it into the future slowly. And watch as resistance becomes the doorway instead of the wall. 6. The nervous system doesn't distinguish between imagined and real. There's something astonishing about the human body, something so simple and so overlooked that most people never realize how profoundly it shapes their lives. Your nervous system cannot tell the difference between what you are vividly imagining and what is actually happening. It doesn't have imagination. It doesn't have context. It only has reaction: chemical, electrical, instinctive. And because of that, A single fearful thought can trigger the same biological storm as a real threat standing right in front of you. Think about a time you worried about something that never happened. Maybe you rehearsed a painful conversation in your mind. Maybe you imagined losing something you love. Maybe you stayed awake at night with your heart racing, breath shallow, palms tingling with dread. In those moments, nothing tangible was happening in the room. The walls were still, the furniture silent, but inside your bloodstream, fear was dancing wildly, as if danger had just broken through the door. That's because the nervous system isn't a storyteller, it's a guardian. It's built to protect you, even if it has to act on shadows. When you imagine worst-case scenarios, your amygdala, the small almond-shaped part of the brain responsible for threat detection, lights up exactly as if the danger were physical. Your body pours adrenaline into your veins, increases your heart rate, and tightens your muscles, preparing you to run or fight. Cortisol, the stress hormone, rises like a tide. Your immune system goes on alert. Digestion slows. Blood flows away from your gut and into your limbs, all because of a thought. In a single anxious moment, your biology becomes a battlefield. The tragedy is not that we experience fear. Fear is useful. The tragedy is that we rehearse danger that never comes. We live through nightmares that never touch us. And the nervous system, loyal to a fault, reacts over and over until fear becomes a familiar home. This is how anxiety becomes identity. Not because you are weak, but because neurons learn what you repeat. Your brain is constantly sculpting itself. Each fearful rehearsal carves a groove, like a river digging deeper into earth. Eventually, water flows the same way every time, not because it must, but because the channel is well worn. And just as fear creates chemistry, imagination crée possibilité. Picture this. A group of athletes were once divided into 3 categories. One trained physically, one trained mentally, imagining each repetition, feeling the weight, hearing their breath. The third did nothing. When tested later, the group who imagined training improved almost as much as the group who lifted physical weight. Their nervous system fired the same neural pathways. The body learned without moving. Your thoughts are not entertainment, they are rehearsal. Consider how your stomach flutters when you daydream about someone you love. Nothing is touching you. No voice is whispering in your ear. But serotonin and dopamine rise anyway. Your chest warms. Your breath softens. The nervous system believes it's happening. Now, imagine what happens when you think about failure, rejection, or disaster. The same nervous system, blind to context, goes into lockdown. It pumps chemicals into your bloodstream and hides you in your own skin. And if you do this often enough, your biology begins to expect danger in every room, even ones filled with sunlight. People say, "It's only in my head," as if that makes it harmless. But your body doesn't receive the memo. Every imagined pain becomes a message. Every message becomes a chemical. Every chemical becomes a mood. And moods, when repeated, become personality. This is why embodiment matters. When you visualize success while breathing calmly, the nervous system learns that success is safe. When you imagine connection while softening your shoulders, the nervous system learns that love is safe. When you picture abundance while releasing tension from your belly, your body learns that more does not mean danger. In other words, you can use this biological truth to heal. The nervous system cannot distinguish between rehearsed peace and real peace either. Close your eyes and imagine yourself sitting somewhere safe, a quiet room with soft light, or under a tree where leaves dance gently in the breeze. Feel your breath move in and out like the tide. Let warmth fill your chest. Your brain releases oxytocin. Your heartbeat slows. Your muscles unclench. Your immune system opens like a flower. Nothing physically changed around you, but internally, everything did. This is why meditation works. It's why gratitude shifts reality. It's why future memory creation is so powerful. When you feel grateful for something, before it manifests, your nervous system rehearses receiving, and when receiving becomes familiar, the body stops rejecting the unfamiliar future. The nervous system craves what it recognizes. This is also why people stay stuck in cycles of heartbreak, scarcity, or self-doubt. They don't want those experiences, but their bodies have memorized the chemistry. Familiarity feels safer than joy. Safety becomes the highest value, not growth. So how do you change this? Not by force. Force triggers defense. You change by gently offering your nervous system new experiences. In tiny doses, take one slow breath when fear arrives. Place your hand on your chest and whisper, "We're safe right now." Feel your feet grounding into the floor. Let your shoulders fall away from your ears. These are not small actions. Each one rewrites your biology. Every gentle breath is a vote for a future where peace is not a stranger. With repetition, neurons rewire, hormones rebalance, muscles soufflent, and one morning, you wake up realizing your body no longer braces for disaster before joy arrives. This is healing. The nervous system doesn't distinguish imagined threat from real threat, and it also doesn't distinguish imagined safety from real safety. Practice safety. Taste it. Breathe it. Invite your future through sensation, not logic. Because when your body feels safe enough to receive a new reality, that's exactly when it arrives. 7. The heart's field is stronger than the mind's. There's a quiet intelligence that lives beneath your ribs. It doesn't speak in sentences the way your mind does. And it doesn't argue or obsess. It communicates in rhythm, in warmth, in expansion. Modern science has only recently begun to measure what ancient mystics whispered for centuries. The electromagnetic field of the heart is thousands of times stronger than that of the brain. It radiates outward like a soft halo, pulsing information into the space around you. And when that rhythm becomes coherent, steady, harmonious, unforced, it speaks a language the universe listens to with perfect clarity. The mind is fast, but the heart is deep. Your thoughts can convince you to pretend you're calm. They can write affirmations in beautiful language. But the heart tells the truth without needing words. If your chest tightens, if your breath stutters, if your pulse races in your throat, no mantra can hide that signal. The quantum field doesn't respond to what you say. It responds to what you broadcast. And the strongest broadcast comes from the heart. Imagine you're a tuning fork. When you feel anxious, your heart vibrates unevenly like a fork struck too hard, ringing sharp and distorted. The field mirrors that noise by sending you situations that match chaos. But when you soften, even slightly, your heart begins to hum differently. Your breath slows. Your shoulders drop. That small shift creates coherence, the smooth synchronization of emotion, breath, and intention. Coherence isn't positive thinking. It's alignment. Think of the last time you felt genuine appreciation. Notice how your chest warmed. Your breath deepened. Your vision softened. In that moment, you weren't forcing gratitude. You were allowing it. That sensation isn't sentimental. It's electromagnetic. Coherence is not an idea. It's a measurable state of being. When you enter coherence, your brain waves follow the rhythm of your heart, not the other way around. Your immune system improves. Your intuition sharpens. Your capacity to receive inspiration increases. It's as if the universe leans in and whispers, "Finally, I can hear you." Many people try to manifest from the mind alone. They visualize, they plan, they repeat phrases. But if their heart is guarded, if it beats irregularly with suspicion or tightens with old wounds, the field receives the tension, not the vision. The universe hears the tremble behind the intention. It responds to the underlying frequency, not the surface performance. Picture a child learning to play the violin. At first, the notes are harsh, trembling, uneven. But with practice, the bow glides, the strings vibrate smoothly, and the room fills with music that moves people to tears. Your heart is the instrument. Coherence is the practice. You've probably met people whose presence feels peaceful the moment they walk into a room. They're not smiling wildly. They're not performing positivity. They're anchored. Their heart is coherent. Without speaking, they influence the emotional climate. Children calm around them. Animals approach. Strangers breathe more easily near them. That is heart-field physics. By contrast, someone filled with fear can walk silently into a room and tension spreads like smoke. No one saw the thought, but everyone felt the field. This is why healing your heart is not sentimental work. It is energetic hygiene. For many, the heart is armored. Life taught them to tighten, to protect, to brace for impact, and each contraction weakened the coherence. When the heart is armored, the field becomes jagged, sending signals of danger into the world. Life responds accordingly. Missed opportunities, repeated heartbreak, closed doors. But when the heart begins to soften slowly, tenderly coherence returns. Softness is not weakness. It's signal clarity. If you want to shift reality, start not with thought, but with breath. Breathe through the chest, wide and slow. Feel the ribs expand like wings. Let the exhale melt tension from the spine. Each breath is like tuning the instrument again. Imagine two metronomes placed side by side on a table. At first, their ticks are out of sync, but over time, through vibration, they begin to synchronize. That's how coherence spreads. When your heart is coherent, your nervous system entrains your brain, your breath, your hormones, even your posture, and something beautiful happens. Your life begins to entrain too. People treat you differently. Stressful situations soften. Opportunities appear that feel strangely timed, like life is coordinating behind the scenes. This isn't magic, it's resonance. The universe is not reacting to your wishes. It is responding to your frequency. And frequency comes not from the mouth, but the chest. This is why gratitude is so powerful. Not forced gratitude, the kind you repeat mechanically, but the gentle wave of appreciation that washes into your sternum and pools behind your ribs. In that moment, your electromagnetic field becomes smooth and ordered. You become a lighthouse in a chaotic sea. The universe navigates toward that signal. When your heart is coherent, you're not trying anymore. You're allowing, you're receiving. Life flows. You feel guided, rather than lost. But coherence isn't permanent. It's a practice. Every time you catch yourself spiraling into fear and return to breath, you're reinforcing coherence. Every time you soften instead of brace, you're strengthening the field. Every time you open the chest when the old pattern tells you to fold inward, you're whispering to the universe, I am safe to receive. Small moments accumulate, and over time, the heart remembers how to stay open without being naive, how to be strong without becoming hard, how to be gentle without collapsing. To create coherence is to speak the oldest language of existence. So if you're longing for transformation, don't start with force. Start with the subtle rhythm beneath your ribs. Place your hand over your heart. Feel the warmth of your palm. Breathe until the pulse steadies. Let your chest rise like a door opening towards sunlight. The body will understand, and once the heart sings in coherence, the universe has no choice but to harmonize with its song. Walk gently. Breathe slowly. Let your heart lead. In coherence, reality ceases to resist you because you finally stopped resisting yourself. 8. Embodiment. Becoming the new version of you. There is a gentle misunderstanding that many people carry without knowing it. They wait for life to show them evidence before they allow themselves to feel different. They wait for the bank account to change before they relax around money. They wait for someone to love them before they soften their chest. They wait for success before they walk with open shoulders. But reality does not work like that. Life does not respond to waiting. It responds to embodiment, to the version of you that you are willing to practice before anything outside of you has shifted. Embodiment means this: you do not become the person after the circumstances change. You become the person, and then the circumstances rearrange to match. Most people stand on the shore, staring at the ocean of possibility, telling themselves, once the waves calm, I'll step in. But the water is waiting for your foot. It wants to respond to your presence. Your vibration tells it how to behave. Reality is not a separate entity that decides your fate. It is a mirror, subtle, silent, honest. It reflects not what you hope for, but what you are willing to live. Think about how you behave when you are truly confident, not pretending, not forcing, but genuinely anchored. Your breath deepens, your movements slow, your voice softens, because you're not rushing to prove anything. That body language, that emotional posture, is embodiment. And when you inhabit it, life meets you differently. People speak to you with respect without knowing why. Opportunities feel drawn to you, as if the wind changed direction. You didn't chase. You became. Embodiment is not about acting. Acting is pretending. Pretending carries tension. Your shoulders know you are lying. Your stomach knows you don't believe the words coming out of your mouth. But embodiment is cellular. It's the quiet rewriting of your nervous system. Imagine someone trying to manifest wealth while their body contracts at every expense. That contraction is a prayer. It says, I am unsafe with money. And the universe, always faithful, reflects more scarcity. But if that same person breathes gently when paying bills, if they treat every dollar as a guest instead of a threat, the field hears a new frequency: I am capable. I am provided for. I am not afraid. Slowly, reality adjusts. The same is true with love. Someone can speak romantic affirmations into the mirror every morning. Yet if their chest tightens when someone gets too close, the heart is broadcasting a message louder than their lips. Connection is dangerous. Love doesn't avoid them because they are unworthy. Love avoids them because the body is signaling a closed door. But when you gently breathe into vulnerability, when you allow your chest to soften, when you sit with discomfort, instead of running from it, you are embodying the version of you who can hold love without collapsing. And life responds by sending relationships that match your new capacity. Embodiment is a conversation with reality that has nothing to do with words. Ask yourself, how would I breathe if I trusted my path? How would I walk if I believed I deserved good things? How would I speak if I knew I could not be abandoned? Not by others, not by myself. And then, practice that breath, that walk, that voice, even in the grocery store, even when no one is watching. Because embodiment is trained through repetition, not through grand gestures, not through loud declarations. Through micro-choices that teach the nervous system, we are becoming someone new. Your biology adapts, your hormones shift, neural pathways reorganize. The heart field changes shape, and reality shifts its choreography around the new song. You are humming. Most people try to think their way into a new timeline. They change their mindset, but keep the same emotional posture. The body remains trapped in yesterday. Embodiment is the missing bridge. A thought becomes real only when the body agrees. Imagine two versions of you standing side by side. One is anxious, shoulders curled, voice hesitant. The other is grounded, breath steady, chest open, not arrogant, simply present. Which one would life trust with abundance? Love, opportunity. Which one do you trust? We often wait for external proof to feel internal safety. But proof doesn't create safety. Safety creates proof. You don't wait for the flower to bloom before watering it. You water it before you see the blossom. Embodiment is watering the seed of your future self. It's also the courage to leave behind behaviors that belong to the old version of you. Perhaps the old you apologized too much, shrank in conversation, or tolerated emotional crumbs. The new you doesn't need to raise your voice or build armor. The new you simply doesn't shrink. And here's something subtle yet powerful: embodiment happens in silence, not in dramatic announcements. It happens in the choices you make privately, in how you speak to yourself at midnight, in whether you breathe through disappointment instead of tightening. One day, you'll notice you no longer react the way you used to. A conversation that once triggered panic will feel like soft rain. A delay that once caused rage will feel like weather, and you'll realize I didn't change because life got easier. Life got easier because I changed. Your nervous system will feel like new soil. Of course, embodiment doesn't mean you won't wobble. You will. But the difference is this: the new version of you knows how to return. The return is the mastery. Walk like someone who belongs in the life you're calling in. Speak like someone who trusts their voice. Rest like someone who believes tomorrow will meet them kindly. Not loudly, not forcefully, quietly, gently, because embodiment is not loud. It's the calmness in your chest that says, "It's already mine." When you embody the new version of yourself long enough, reality loses track of the old one. Doors appear where walls once stood. People treat you as you treat yourself. And the universe whispers, "Welcome back." Change does not arrive when the world changes. Change arrives when you do. Become first. Reality follows. 9. Neural grooves. The old paths in the mind. There's a quiet architecture inside your brain that you may never see, but you feel its influence every day. It's built out of patterns, thoughts you've repeated, emotions you've rehearsed, reactions you've lived through again and again. Science calls them neural pathways, but it may help to imagine them like grooves carved into the earth. Every time you walk the same emotional trail, the soil becomes deeper, smoother, easier to travel. Eventually, it becomes a road, and without realizing it, you find yourself returning to that road again, even when it doesn't lead anywhere new. When you were younger, you reacted a certain way to pain. Maybe you learned to shrink when someone raised their voice. Maybe you learned to perform when you felt unnoticed. Maybe you learned to stay silent, to take up less space, to keep your dreams small enough not to be mocked. Those responses didn't happen once, they happened many times. Over time, the brain said, this is how we survive. And it built a groove deep enough to hold your footsteps through adulthood. The difficult thing about neural grooves is that they masquerade as personality. You think, "This is just who I am: nervous, doubtful, defensive, angry, numb." But those labels are not identity. They are pathways. They are habits of biology. Imagine a record player with a scratch. The needle catches the same loop, playing the same few notes again and again. Not because the music demands it, but because the groove is worn in your mind. Every time you replay an old memory, every time you respond with the same pattern of fear or anger, that groove deepens, whispering, "This is familiar. Stay here." The nervous system prefers familiar pain over unknown possibility. That's how grooves become cages. You may have noticed this in your relationships. You meet someone kind, yet your body anticipates abandonment. So you pull back. You start a new project, yet your mind whispers old doubts. So you stop. You choose the same emotional response, not because it brings peace, but because the groove makes it easy. Old grooves are the reason comfort zones feel like homes, even when they suffocate you. It's not intelligence guiding the decision. It's repetition. But here's the truth that offers hope: neural grooves can be rewritten, not by force, not overnight, but slowly. Gently, through new experience, you carve a new path, the same way you carved the old one, through repetition. Instead of reacting with anger, you pose. Instead of shrinking, you breathe. Instead of assuming rejection, you soften your chest. Instead of tensing at opportunity, you let your shoulders relax. Each time you choose differently, you lift the needle off the old scratch and place it somewhere new. At first, the new sound feels unfamiliar. The brain protests. It tells you this new song is risky. Your stomach twists. Your breath stutters. Not because the new path is wrong, but because the nervous system has never walked it before. A new groove begins shallow. You might forget it exists. You might fall back into the old track. That's not failure. It's muscle memory. Every habit in your life, good or bad, is simply a groove deep enough to hold your weight. Healing is learning to walk out of grooves that no longer serve you. Think of people you know who repeat the same relationship patterns, the same financial struggles, the same emotional spirals. They're not cursed. They're not broken. They're entangled in grooves, roads paved by history, not by destiny. Sometimes, you'll catch yourself reacting before you can think. Your heart tightens before you know why. Your shoulders climb toward your ears when someone raises an eyebrow. That is the groove firing faster than consciousness can intervene. Pause it. Place a hand on your body. Feel the pattern in motion. Whisper to the wound beneath it. We're not there anymore. The moment you bring awareness to a groove, you weaken its automatic pull. Awareness is the hand that lifts the needle. You can imagine the brain as a dense forest. The old groove is a cleared path easy to follow. Even if it leads nowhere you want to go, the new path is tangled with branches, harder to walk. Slower. You must push through brush, step over roots. But if you keep walking, the old trail grows over. The forest begins to forget it. Similarly, the neural groove begins to fade. Each repetition becomes easier. Each emotional return becomes quicker. Each recovery becomes faster. And then something beautiful happens. You respond to life as the person you are becoming, not the person you had to be. But let's be honest, rewiring hurts sometimes. It asks you to sit with emotions instead of suppressing them. It asks you to breathe instead of react. It asks you to be curious instead of afraid. That discomfort you feel is not failure. It's the friction of old grooves dissolving. At first, the new path feels like pretending, but pretending and practicing are not so different. Eventually, practice becomes pattern. Pattern becomes groove. Groove becomes instinct. One day, you'll find yourself responding with grace where you once panicked. You'll speak kindly where you once closed down. You'll choose rest where you once chased. And you'll realize the old groove has lost its magnetism. Someone might ask, how did you change? And you may not be able to point to a single moment, because transformation doesn't happen in fireworks. It happens in footsteps. It happens in breaths. It happens in thousands of tiny nudges against the old shape of your life. Neural grooves are not destiny. They are maps. And maps can be redrawn. Treat yourself gently while the new path forms. There will be days you fall back into the old road. Don't shame yourself. Shame only deepens the groove. Instead, place your hand over your heart and ask softly, what did I really need in that moment? Because the new groove is built on care, not force, on awareness, not punishment, on breath, not bracing. Keep choosing, keep stepping, keep carving. In time, the new road will feel like home, and the old one will fade into the wilderness behind you, not forgotten, but finally untraveled. 10. Gratitude level 3. Thanking what hasn't arrived. Yet, there's a kind of gratitude the world understands easily. It's the gratitude you feel when good things arrive, the warmth of a hug, an unexpected opportunity, a moment where everything aligns just right. We are taught from childhood to say thank you for these experiences. They are visible, tangible, already here. That's level 1. Then there is the gratitude for progress, the slow healing of a friendship, the gradual growth of your income, the small signs that life is opening. This gratitude is quieter, but it's still rooted in what you can see. That's level 2. But there is a third kind of gratitude. It doesn't wait for evidence. It doesn't depend on sight or proof. It whispers a thank you into an empty room and somehow fills the space with presence. This is gratitude for what hasn't yet arrived in the physical world, but already exists in the quantum field of possibility. It's the gratitude that bends timelines, that collapses waves of probability, that signals to the universe, I am ready. I am aligning. I trust that this is already real. This may sound poetic, but it's also deeply practical. When you feel grateful for something that hasn't yet entered your life, your nervous system begins to respond, as if it already has. Your heartbeat settles, your muscles unclench, your breath lengthens, you stop gripping reality with desperate fingers. And in this state, the body emits coherence, the same electromagnetic harmony we spoke of earlier. Coherence is the language of manifestation. Imagine standing at the edge of a forest, calling out into the trees, I know you're there. You can't see the animal approaching, but you feel its presence. Your voice carries certainty, not hope. Gratitude level 3 works like that. Your nervous system whispers to the universe, it's safe to come closer. I won't flinch when you arrive. Most people anchor their gratitude in what they can already measure. They want evidence first, then emotion. But the universe responds to the emotion that precedes the evidence. When you feel grateful now, before anything changes, you shift your frequency to match the version of you who already has the thing you desire. Consider how you behave when you believe something is coming. You relax. You stop micromanaging. You stop checking your phone every 5 minutes, waiting for a message that proves you matter. You stop clasping your chest, afraid that life has forgotten your address. Instead, you breathe, like someone who trusts delivery. And this is the quiet truth. Most of our suffering comes not from absence, but from doubt about whether what we long for is allowed to be ours. Gratitude level 3 dissolves that doubt. You might wonder, how can I feel grateful for something I've never touched? But the body is already trained to do this. Think of how you feel when you anticipate seeing someone you love. You feel excitement days before the meeting. Your body releases dopamine, oxytocin, and warmth before the hug ever touches your skin. Nothing has happened physically, yet your chemistry is celebrating. Gratitude level 3 does the same with destiny. It lets you taste the future now. When you practice this, something subtle happens. The ache of waiting dissolves. Waiting is a frequency of lack. Anticipation is a frequency of alignment. Gratitude is a frequency of completion. Completion collapses the wave. Instead of whispering to life, "Where are you?" you begin to say, "Thank you for coming." That tiny shift in language alters your electromagnetic field. You step into the identity of someone who already lives inside the reality you desire. Let's imagine money for a moment. Most people wait to feel abundant until the deposit lands. But money does not flow into clenched fists. It flows where it feels welcomed. When you say, "Thank you for the abundance that is arriving," your body relaxes. If you genuinely feel that relaxation, you've already shifted into coherence. Your choices improve. Your perception widens. Opportunities that were invisible become obvious. Gratitude changes the lens, and the new lens reveals a new world. The same is true for love. When you wait to feel lovable until someone arrives, you are telling the field, love is not safe to land here. But when you say, "Thank you for the connection that is finding me," your chest softens. Your boundaries become wise instead of rigid. You stop rehearsing abandonment. The field hears readiness. not hunger, and health gratitude for healing, before the symptom fades, rewires your entire biochemistry. You stop identifying with the sickness, and your immune system responds to that identity shift. The body heals more effectively when it is not defending against fear. Gratitude level 3 is not delusion. It's rehearsal. It's training the nervous system to hold the frequency of what you want, so that when it arrives, you don't reject it. Many people sabotage their blessings because they never rehearse the feeling of receiving. The truth is this: you cannot receive from a posture of disbelief. So how do you practice? You close your eyes. You breathe deeply. You imagine the emotion, not the details. Not the timeline, just the feeling. What does relief feel like in your sternum? What does stability feel like in your spine? What does being chosen feel like behind your ribs? Let your body answer, not your brain. Then whisper a silent thank you. Not loud, not dramatic, just honest. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Say it as if you're greeting something you already recognize. At first, you'll feel like you're pretending. That's normal. Pretending is simply the nervous system testing the water. But over time, pretending becomes familiarity. And familiarity becomes embodiment. The old version of you survives by scanning for danger. The new version of you thrives by scanning for arrival. Level 3 gratitude is the bridge between them. And here's the quiet magic: when you remain grateful before evidence shows itself, waiting disappears. You stop living between lack and longing. You begin living in the subtle glow of any moment now. That glow is attractive. It draws timelines toward you. So tonight, before sleep, place your hand on your heart and feel it beat. That pulse is proof. Life is already giving to you. Whisper gratitude for what's on its way. Because the moment you thank something not yet visible, you tell the quantum field it already exists. And the universe, always listening, always faithful, rushes to fill the space your gratitude has prepared. Walk gently with this practice. Let it soften your edges. Let it teach your nervous system to trust arrival again. Because level 3 gratitude doesn't just change your future, it changes the version of you that future is coming to be. 11. Future memory. Remembering the future. There's a quiet doorway inside the mind that most people never learn to open. It's the door between what is and what can be. We tend to believe that memory only moves in one direction, that we can only recall the past, never what lies ahead. But the nervous system, the subconscious, and the quantum field are far less linear than we imagine. The brain does not fully distinguish between a vividly imagined experience and one that has already happened. When you rehearse a future with enough detail, emotion, breath, and sensory texture, you are not pretending. You are building neural architecture. You are sowing roots into a moment you have not yet lived, calling it toward you. Think of a concert pianist practicing a piece silently in their mind. Their fingers may not be touching the keys, but the motor cortex in the brain fires as if they were. Neural pathways strengthen. Muscle memory deepens. When the fingers finally do touch ivory, the performance feels familiar. That is future memory. It gives your body a head start on the life you are stepping into. Most people think manifestation is about wanting, but wanting carries tension. It signals lack, distance, hunger. Future memory dissolves that hunger by giving the nervous system a taste of completion. When you close your eyes and imagine the smell of the room where your dream unfolds, the warmth on your skin, the weight in your chest when relief washes over you, your brain begins wiring itself as though you've already lived it. And the universe responds not to the timeline you stand on, but to the timeline you're prepared for. Let's say you desire abundance. If you visualize wealth from a place of fear, your muscles tighten, your breath shortens, the body whispers, danger. But if you imagine abundance with softness, breathing deeply, shoulders relaxed, heart open, you create a memory of abundance that feels safe. The nervous system learns, we can hold this, and life begins arranging itself to match. Future memory is not about fantasizing. Fantasizing is escapism. It pulls you out of your body and into longing. Future memory pulls the future into your body now. The difference is emotional coherence. Fantasy says, I wish. Future memory says, I remember. One reaches, the other receives. Think back to moments before you met someone significant, before a friend who would change your life arrived, before a partner appeared. A strange feeling stirred inside you, a sense of unfolding, as if the air was thicker with potential. That sensation wasn't coincidence. Your nervous system often remembers the future before the mind does. Quantum physics has whispered this for decades. Observation collapses possibility into form. But how you observe your emotional state, your level of embodiment, your breath determines which possibility is chosen. Practice future memory like threading a needle. Slow, precise, gentle. Imagine waking up in the version of your life that you're calling in. Notice small details: the light through the curtains, the feeling of the floor beneath your feet, the first breath of the morning. Does your chest feel tight or open? Does the room carry the scent of peace? The more real you make it in your nervous system, the more familiar it becomes. And here's something subtle: when something is familiar, the nervous system stops blocking it. Your body no longer perceives it as foreign. It becomes allowed. You can do this anywhere, sitting quietly in your car, lying on the bed after midnight, waiting at a red light. You can let your breath paint a memory of a future conversation where you speak honestly without trembling. You can taste the relief of debt dissolving. You can feel the warmth of love arriving without bracing to run. The universe does not need details. It responds to feeling. The more vivid the experience inside you, the stronger the neural connection becomes. Neurons that fire together, wire together. Fire them often enough, and the brain expects the future memory. And expectation is one of the strongest creative forces in consciousness. But let me offer a gentle warning. If you visualize your future from the old identity, you'll reinforce the old identity. Future memory must be lived through the feeling of the one who already stands there, not the one who is begging to arrive. So ask yourself, how would I breathe if this reality were already mine? How would my shoulders hang? How would I rest at night? What small anxieties would dissolve like smoke? Practice these answers in your body, not as performance, but as rehearsal, because when the moment arrives physically, you won't collapse. You'll step into it like a room you've been in before. Sometimes, you will feel resistance, old grooves tugging you back. This is normal. When the body senses unfamiliar happiness, it panics, not because joy is bad, but because it has not been rehearsed. Keep breathing. Let joy become familiar through repetition. Let your body learn that expansion won't shatter you. Future memory also works on subtler realms. When you imagine yourself healed from a heartbreak, your heart cell chemistry shifts. When you imagine yourself speaking confidently, your voice box neurons activate. When you picture yourself resting without guilt, cortisol levels drop slightly. Each repetition leaves a fingerprint. Eventually, your biology becomes the future before the future arrives. And here's the beautiful paradox. When you remember the future clearly enough, you stop trying to force it. You no longer grasp or chase. You stop loading pressure onto every step. Waiting dissolves. You live inside becoming rather than hunger. And when hunger disappears, timing accelerates. Because hunger tells the universe, it is not here. Gratitude tells the universe, it is. Future memory tells the universe, it always was. Late at night, when the noise of the world quiets, try this place, your hand over your heart. Close your eyes and breathe. Imagine your future self placing their hand over yours from the other side of time. Feel their calm, their softness, their clarity. Let it seep into your bones. That is future memory. Two versions of you, shaking hands across a timeline. Keep practicing. Keep remembering. Eventually, you won't be imagining anymore. You'll simply be arriving somewhere your nervous system has already been. 12. Reality doesn't need your permission to continue. There's a startling realization that comes to you only after you've tried, again and again, to change your life by pushing against the world around you. One day you wake up and see it clearly. Reality doesn't wait for your approval. It doesn't pause kindly while you gather strength. It doesn't ask whether you meant to repeat the same patterns. It continues. It grows from whatever seeds you water. And most often, without noticing, you water the familiar. You don't need to consciously choose fear for fear to survive. All you have to do is repeat the same nervous reaction you had yesterday. You don't have to worship scarcity for scarcity to remain. You only have to brace your shoulders again each morning as you think about the bills. The loop swings open wide and swallows you gently, like a river pulling you back into its current. Not because it is stronger than you, but because it is familiar. The truth is, this reality is self-feeding. It expands wherever your attention regularly rests. When you focus on loneliness, you don't conjure loneliness from thin air. You feed the neural groove that knows how to ache. When you rehearse disappointment, you deepen the groove that expects it. Slowly, quietly, yesterday becomes tomorrow, not through conscious choice, but through repetition. Most people believe suffering is a sign they've done something wrong, but often, suffering is simply the echo of old patterns being played again, like a song stuck on repeat. It doesn't need your permission to replay. It needs your participation. And participation can be as subtle as a sigh, a flinch, a thought you allow to pass unchallenged. Consider how your hand instinctively reaches for your phone when you feel lonely. That gesture might seem small, almost meaningless, but every tiny habit reinforces a structure. That structure becomes identity. Identity becomes life. And life doesn't need your consent to continue being itself. You can't merely think your way into a new timeline. If your body, emotions, and breath continue to move, as they always have, the familiar future will arrive loyal, predictable, unchanged. A life pattern is like a garden. You don't need to water the weeds for them to grow. You only need to avoid touching the soil where flowers could be planted. The most subtle nourishment of old patterns is attention. Not active attention, even the unconscious kind. A brief worry, a habitual frustration, the tiny tightening behind the ribs. When you think of something uncertain, those micro repetitions keep the circuitry alive. The nervous system loves routine, even when routine hurts. It whispers, "We survived this pattern before. We know the exits. Stay here." That is how old realities perpetuate themselves. But here's something many never learn. You don't need to fight a pattern for it to dissolve. You only need to stop feeding it. When fear arises and you breathe instead of reacting, it loses nourishment. When scarcity whispers and you soften instead of contracting, it starves. When jealousy flares and you simply watch the sensation without collapsing into it, the groove becomes shallower. Reality depends on emotional attention, the way fire depends on oxygen. Your breath keeps it burning. Imagine someone sitting beside a piano. Each time they strike the same note, the wood inside vibrates. Over time, that wood becomes conditioned to respond to that exact frequency. So it is with your nervous system. Each time you respond the same way, your body becomes more prepared to do it again. Without awareness, your life becomes muscle memory. But this doesn't make you powerless. It makes you accountable. You don't have to dismantle the entire machine of your life in one moment. You only need to stop turning the small gears that keep the old engine running. Pause when you would normally rush. Breathe when you would normally brace. Soften when you would normally defend. These shifts are small, but they are revolutionary. Some people believe the universe is testing them, but most often, the universe is simply reflecting. Repeated patterns are not punishments. They are invitations. Invitations to respond differently. Reality doesn't continue because it is stubborn. It continues because you are consistent. It reads your nervous system, not your declarations. If your body says, "We are still afraid of expansion," life mirrors contraction. If your chest tightens around love, life mirrors distance. If your jaw clenches around abundance, life mirrors difficulty. You don't need to want something to nourish it. You only need to feel it with intensity and repetition. Pain can be nourished. Worry can be nourished. Self-doubt is easy to feed because it requires nothing except silence. But so can joy, so can safety, so can trust. These, too, grow from repetition. Maybe you sit in the morning light and let your breath slow down by a single degree. That moment plants a seed. Maybe you speak one truth you usually swallow. Another seed. Maybe you unclench your stomach after a difficult conversation. That moment starves an old pattern. These gestures seem insignificant, like turning your head slightly while walking through a forest. But walk long enough with that subtle angle shift, and you end up in a different clearing entirely. Reality doesn't need your permission to continue, as it is, but transformation doesn't need permission either. It simply needs a new behavior, repeated more often than the old one. Think of a record. One scratch makes the needle repeat. If you tap it gently to shift the groove, even a millimeter, the song continues. New melody, new verse. Life is like that. It only asks for the smallest shift. You don't have to tear the old reality down. You only have to stop bowing to it. Starve the grooves. Introduce breath where there used to be panic. Offer softness where there used to be armor. Offer silence where there used to be spirals. Over time, the old reality will collapse not violently, but from lack of attention, and in the quiet left behind, you will feel something new growing. Not because you demanded it, not because you fought for it, but because you finally, gently, stopped feeding what you no longer wish to keep alive. Walk softly. Notice where your energy goes, because whatever you repeat becomes real. 13. Familiar energy is stronger than desire. There's a quiet battle happening inside you that most people never realize they're fighting. On one side is desire, the longing for something new, brighter, freer, kinder. On the other side is familiarity, the emotional chemistry your body has practiced for years. You might think desire should win easily. After all, it burns, it aches, it calls your name in the middle of the night. But familiarity has something far more powerful than intensity repetition. The nervous system is not loyal to your dreams. It's loyal to what it knows. If you've lived most of your life in mild anxiety, your body becomes fluent in the language of uncertainty. It learns how to tighten the belly, how to brace the shoulders, how to quicken the heart. That chemistry becomes your baseline, not because you love it, but because survival once depended on it. Over time, anxiety becomes home, comfortably uncomfortable. So when you try to reach for peace, something strange happens. Your body says, "Wait, we don't know this place. We don't know its exits, danger, its rules." And suddenly, you feel restless in moments where you should feel calm. You stir conflict in relationships that feel too loving. You procrastinate opportunities that feel too expansive. Not because you're broken, but because your body is addicted to the emotional signature of yesterday. Every addiction is just repetition wearing familiar clothing. Think of someone who grew up around chaos. When life softens, when people are kind, when schedules are steady, they feel bored. Their nervous system has been braced for impact for so long that ease feels like a trap. Their body goes looking for tension the way a tongue searches for a missing tooth. They crave what they once survived, not because it was good, but because it was known. Your body remembers what your mind has forgotten. It remembers the heartbreak that clenched your stomach. So love that feels safe confuses it. It remembers the loneliness that pressed against your ribs. So intimacy feels like risk. It remembers scarcity. So abundance feels undeserved. And when you try to shift into new feelings, the old chemistry pulls you back like gravity. This is why desire alone cannot create change. Desire is mental. Familiarity is biological. Wanting is not enough. You must become a body that can hold what you want. Otherwise, you will sabotage quietly, unconsciously returning to the emotional weather you're dressed for. Look at your patterns gently. Notice how you feel when things begin to improve. Do you relax, or do you fidget? Worry? Overthink? Do you suddenly expect the phone to ring with bad news? That's not intuition. That's emotional addiction. Your cells literally carry receptors for the chemicals of your emotions. If you feed them fear for long enough, they crave fear. If you feed them stress for long enough, they crave stress. When you try to pivot toward joy, the body whispers, "This isn't enough stimulation," and begins to search for something to worry about. And then you wonder why life doesn't change. It's not because the universe is ignoring you. It's because your broadcast signal hasn't changed. Your thoughts are requesting a miracle, but your body is emitting the frequency of survival. To shift this, you must treat your biology with tenderness. You don't rip someone out of a burning building and then demand they immediately run a marathon. You sit with them. You help them breathe. You let their nervous system thaw slowly. That's how you treat yourself. Start by noticing the moments where your body leans back into the old energy. When you feel the urge to stir drama, pause. When silence feels threatening, breathe. When peace feels awkward, stay. These micro moments are where identity reshapes. It won't feel comfortable. Comfort isn't the goal. Capacity is. Imagine teaching your body a new emotional recipe. At first, the ingredients feel unfamiliar. The measurements feel wrong. But each repetition strengthens the neural groove for peace, trust, abundance, intimacy. And with enough repetition, the new feeling becomes the familiar one. When this happens, the old pattern feels foreign, not attractive. That's when you've truly shifted. People often beg the universe for new outcomes while clinging to old identities. But reality cannot deliver something your body cannot hold. Life will not pour water into a cup welded shut. So ask yourself with honesty, do I desire joy, or do I desire the chemistry of worry? Do I desire love, or do I desire the adrenaline of uncertainty? Do I desire abundance, or do I desire the familiar ache of never enough? Your answers will likely live not in your mind, but in your chest and stomach. The nervous system tells the truth through sensation. Now, as someone who has walked through years of old chemistry, let me share a secret. The body learns safety through breath. When an unfamiliar emotion arrives, peace, success, intimacy, breathe. Stay. Don't run from the warmth. Let your body acclimate like skin in sunlight after winter. You become the new you through exposure, not escape. Slowly, the body begins to trust. The old cravings weaken. The new chemistry feels less like danger and more like home. And one day, you'll find yourself standing in a room of love. And instead of bracing, you'll exhale. You'll sit with abundance and feel calm, not suspicious. You'll choose the gentle path without waiting for the earthquake. This is the victory. Remember, desires are invitations. Familiar energy is inertia. To move, you must create new emotional memories. Not through force, but through presence, through soft persistence, through breath. You don't heal by denying what once saved you. You heal by teaching your body that the war is over, and peace is safe enough to stay. Walk gently, rehearse joy, Let new feelings become familiar. Because when the body finally prefers the new chemistry, your desires stop being distant dreams and become effortless arrival. 14. Returning is more important than perfection. There's a quiet belief, buried deep in many of us. A belief that whispers we must get everything right on the first try. That growth must be linear, that healing must be smooth, that once we choose change, we should never fall backward. But that belief is a relic of survival, not truth. Change does not demand perfection. It demands return. Most of your suffering does not come from taking a wrong step. It comes from what happens after the shame, the self-judgment, the belief that you've ruined everything. Shame is the true interruption. Failure is just a moment. Shame turns it into identity. Imagine a bird learning to fly. Its wings wobble. It misses branches. It falls into the soft earth. But it doesn't tell itself stories about worth. It doesn't say, "I shouldn't be flying at all." It climbs back to the branch and tries again. Returning is built into its instinct, but in humans, ego interrupts instinct. We think falling means we're not made for flight. The truth is this: you do not become stronger by never falling. You become stronger by learning how to land softly and lift yourself back up. Perfection is brittle. It shatters at the first crack. But devotion, the willingness to return again and again, is unbreakable. Devotion forgives the stumble. Devotion gathers the scattered pieces and shapes them into wisdom. Think of your nervous system like a path through a forest. Each time you walk the same trail, the ground clears. The brush softens. The route becomes easier. That's how habits are formed. When you step off that path for a day, it doesn't vanish. When you return, the trail greets you. It's still yours. It never stopped belonging to you. People break their own hearts with unrealistic expectations. They meditate once, feel peace, and then panic when the next day feels chaotic. They practice gratitude all week and despair when irritation returns. They breathe calmly through stress and then curse themselves when fear knocks at their door again. They think the appearance of old emotion means failure. But old emotion returning is not regression, it's integration. The body is learning new ways of handling what once overwhelmed it. It sends old signals to see if you can meet them differently. That's not punishment. That's progress. Falling isn't the opposite of success. Quitting is. The nervous system grows through repetition. It's like weight training. You lift. You strain. If you rest, muscles tear microscopically, then rebuild stronger. But if you lift once and never return, nothing changes. The same is true for emotional evolution. You practice presence. You wobble. You breathe. You return. Return is the repetition that rewires. If you meditate for 10 days and skip the 11th, the victory is not in the streak. It's in the willingness to sit again on day 12. If you speak kindly to yourself all morning and then criticize yourself at lunch, the victory is not in purity. It's in the moment you soften again. Perfection asks you to perform. Return asks you to come home. And here's the truth. The ego hates falling as part of the choreography. It teaches you where your edges are. It reveals the grooves that still need attention. It invites you back to your breath with humility. If you could ascend without friction, you would be hollow. Friction gives depth. Stumbling gives dimension. Shadows give texture to the light. Many people give up because they think they've ruined the process. But you cannot ruin something that lives inside you. Growth isn't a clean glass. You can drop and shatter. It's soil. You can walk away from it for weeks. And when you return, it's still fertile. Your nervous system doesn't need you to be perfect. It needs you to stay in relationship. Healing is not a single dramatic moment. It's thousands of micro returns. You will forget who you are many times. You will slip back into old grooves, old fears, old contractions. But the speed at which you remember again, that is the measure of transformation. At first, You may wander for months before you return, then weeks, then days, then minutes, then moments, until one day, you find that you never truly left. You only blinked. The body learns, the heart learns, the breath learns. So the next time you notice yourself spiraling, don't declare defeat. Place your hand on your chest. Feel the warmth of your palm. Whisper softly, "I'm back." That is mastery. Not dramatic displays of discipline, not impossible standards. Just return. Returning is how new grooves deepen. Returning is how old grooves fade. Returning is how safety becomes familiar. Returning is how the nervous system updates its story. You do not need to outrun your shadow. You only need to keep walking toward the light. And even on the days where turning toward the light feels too hard, rest. Don't shame yourself. Rest is also a return, if you rest with presence instead of collapse. Remember this, gently every version of you that slipped was doing the best it knew how. When you return, don't drag them behind you in punishment. Hold their hand. Thank them for surviving. Then walk forward together. Perfection is a prison built from fear of being human. Return is the path of the soul. And as long as you keep returning breath after breath, moment after moment, day after day, your growth is inevitable. The universe listens less to your flawless streaks and more to your resilience. You are not here to be perfect. You are here to remember, and remember again and again. Each return is a prayer. Each return is a seed. Each return is proof. You are still becoming. 15. Emotion is the carrier wave of information. There's a subtle truth that lingers beneath all spiritual teachings. One often overlooked in a culture obsessed with thinking, visualizing, and planning. It isn't the pictures in your mind that bend probability. It's the vibration in your chest. Imagery is language for the brain. But emotion, the felt pulse beneath your ribs, is the language of the universe. It carries signal. It sends instructions. It broadcasts who you are long before words leave your mouth. You can imagine the life you want in exquisite detail. See the house, the relationship, the career. Yet if your chest is filled with fear, doubt, or contraction, the broadcast you send into the field says, "I am still in danger. I do not trust expansion. Keep me small." And the field listens not to your fantasy, but to your frequency. Emotion is the carrier wave. In electronics, a carrier wave holds information across distance. It determines how far the signal travels and how clearly it arrives. You can attach any message to it. But if the carrier wave is weak or distorted, the message is lost. Your thoughts are information. Your emotions are the carrier wave. Without the wave, the information never reaches reality. Think of the last time you truly felt gratitude, not thought about it, but felt it. Notice how your chest warmed, how your breath loosened, how your shoulders dropped away from your ears. In that moment, your heart was broadcasting a coherent signal, smooth, synchronized, steady. The field responds to that coherence by collapsing probability into outcomes that match your state. But remember, this emotion isn't just joy or sadness. Emotion is the subtle residue behind breath, the texture of your nervous system at rest. It's the background music of your soul. Most people misunderstand this. They try to manifest using their mind's vision boards, affirmations, daydreaming. These can be beautiful tools, but they are incomplete. Words don't change. Probability felt. Meaning does. You can speak 1,000 affirmations about abundance while your heart thrums with scarcity, and the field replies to the scarcity every time. Your electromagnetic field, the energetic halo that surrounds your body, is shaped by what you feel consistently, not by what you imagine occasionally. This is why chronic worry creates chronic struggle. Worry is a broadcast. Your nervous system says, "I expect danger." The field delivers situations that validate that expectation. The universe does not punish, it mirrors. When you truly feel something, safety, love, self-worth, doors open that logic could never have constructed. Probability bends toward your emotional center. This is why healing matters more than fantasizing. Healing changes the carrier wave. Imagine two radios, one with a smooth, clean signal, and one with static. When the static is loud, you cannot hear the song. No matter how beautiful it is, the static is unresolved emotion, old grief, stored fear, tension in the gut. You can visualize joy all you want, but if your nervous system is broadcasting static, the carrier wave cannot travel far. Here's the deeper truth. Emotions are not accidental. They carry information from the subconscious. They tell you what your nervous system believes is safe. If certain dreams stir anxiety in your chest, it means those dreams are outside your practiced identity. Your emotional reaction isn't saying, "Don't go there." It's saying, "We don't know how to hold that yet." You don't heal by forcing new emotions. You heal by creating space for them, breath by breath, softness by softness. As you soften into new emotions, the static quiets, and the carrier wave grows stronger. Considère love. You can picture the perfect partner in your mind, but if the heart contracts when someone gets close, the carrier wave says, "Love is unsafe." Reality arranges accordingly. Love retreats, not because you are unworthy, but because your emotional broadcast is mismatched. Now consider abundance. You can visualize wealth daily, but if your chest tightens when money leaves your hands, your emotional signal says, "Scarcity is my home." The field obliges, not out of cruelty, but coherence. Emotion shapes probability by determining which version of you reality responds to. You do not attract what you picture. You attract what you broadcast. Imagine your emotions like magnets. Weak magnets attract randomly. Strong magnets pull specific objects with precision. When your emotional field is coherent, clear, steady, focused, you become a strong magnet. You don't chase reality. It lands. Sometimes, people say, "But I felt good for a few minutes." Why didn't reality change? Because emotion is not a moment, it's a pattern. Probability shifts when the emotional state becomes familiar. When the nervous system recognizes the new feeling as safe. This is why gentle consistency matters. It's not about staying positive all the time, that's impossible. It's about returning to emotional coherence more often than you return to emotional contraction. Returning, softening, reopening. Emotion is not about performance. It's about permission. If you want to shift your timeline, don't force grand feelings. Start small. Notice the warmth in your chest when you witness kindness. Notice the soft exhale when you sit in silence. Notice the moment your jaw unclenches. These micro shifts strengthen your carrier wave. One day, you'll feel something subtle. The static is quieter. Desire no longer shakes your nervous system. Possibility doesn't trigger contraction. And life responds quickly, not because you finally convinced it, but because your emotional broadcast finally matches the version of reality you asked for. Let your feelings become familiar with the world you're walking toward. Not through fantasy, through embodiment. Emotion is the language your heart speaks to the field. When you learn to speak it fluently, probability bends not with effort, but with resonance. Walk gently, breathe deeper, soften the noise. Because it's not the picture in your mind that changes your life. It's the vibration behind your ribs whispering, pulsing, sending information into the fabric of existence. 16. Overshoot frequency. When your energy outgrows its old walls. There is a moment on this path that almost everyone meets, yet few people truly understand. It arrives quietly, often disguised as panic, doubt, exhaustion, or sudden overwhelm. It happens the first time your internal frequency rises above the emotional ceiling you've lived under for years. It's the moment you dare to feel worthy, safe, abundant, loved, and your body doesn't know what to do with it. This is overshoot frequency. Imagine living in a house with a ceiling so low you learn to walk hunched over. One day, you straighten your spine for the first time. It feels strange. Your muscles ache. Part of you wonders if you should bend back down. That ache isn't injury. It's unfamiliarity. The ceiling was never truth. It was practice. When you begin to broadcast a higher vibration, one rooted in trust, safety, gratitude, self-respect, the nervous system senses departure from the known terrain. It reacts as if you're stepping off the edge of a cliff, not because danger is present, but because joy is unpracticed. Your biology is ancient. It is built to keep you alive, not fulfilled. It would rather you stay in predictable suffering than risk unpredictable thriving. So when you overshoot your old emotional frequency, your body triggers alarms disguised as a sudden urge to sabotage success, an impulse to start a fight, a wave of fatigue, a headache, tension, tight chest, a voice whispering, "This isn't real. Go back." This is not intuition warning you. It is chemistry protesting change. You are not regressing. You are evolving. Think of a balloon being inflated. At a certain size, the rubber stretches. It feels like pressure, heat, but that sensation is expansion, not rupture. Your emotional capacity works the same way. When you feel higher frequency emotions, peace, joy, confidence, intimacy, your nervous system stretches to hold them, and stretching often feels like fear. This is why people withdraw when life improves. They sabotage relationships that finally feel calm. They quit jobs just before the promotion. They spend money just as financial ease arrives. They stir chaos when peace becomes too quiet. They are overshooting an old set point. Every person has an emotional thermostat, the temperature of familiarity. If you've lived at 60 degrees of self-worth, and suddenly life asks you to hold 80 degrees, your emotional thermostat will try to cool you down. It will create circumstances and thoughts that bring you back to the known environment again, not because you're unworthy, but because your biology equates familiar with safe. Overshoot frequency is what happens when your soul says, "It's time," and your body says, "I don't recognize this." That tension is sacred. It means you are leaving the old field. This is where most people turn back. They kneel before the old grooves, bowing to the discomfort instead of breathing through it. But when you feel this friction, gently remind yourself, my nervous system is adjusting to a larger life. It's like stepping from a dim room into sunlight. Your eyes sting. You squint. Part of you wants shade. But that discomfort is not a sign you belong in darkness. It is the bridge between blindness and clarity. Overshoot frequency shows up in simple ways too. You've been calm for days. Then suddenly anxiety spikes. Business grows. Then guilt appears. Love deepens. Then fear tightens your ribs. That's the old frequency trying to pull you home. Don't interpret this as failure. Interpret it as confirmation. You are crossing the emotional border between timelines. The body doesn't surrender old identities quietly. It will offer reasons, good, logical reasons to go back. But reason is not intelligence. Intelligence is the quiet voice behind your sternum saying, "Just a little more. Breathe. You're safe." When you overshoot, breathe slow. Soften your shoulders. Let your chest expand, like a doorway opening. Stay. Staying rewires your capacity. Staying deepens the groove of the new frequency. Staying teaches your cells that joy won't kill you, because that's what's really happening. The body believes unfamiliar emotions are threats, but when you remain without collapsing, without apologizing, you rewrite the map. One day, you will hold the higher frequency without strain. What once felt terrifying will feel ordinary. The success that used to spike adrenaline will feel like home. The love that once made you flinch will feel like oxygen. That moment is the nervous system whispering, "I learned," and then you overshoot again. Because growth is fractal. Each expansion reveals another ceiling to stretch. Do not romanticize comfort. Comfort belongs to yesterday. Expansion belongs to tomorrow. And the friction you feel right now is the sound of the walls widening. When fear arrives in your throat, place a hand on your chest and say, "We've never held this much light before." It's okay to grow. When doubt whispers, respond. This sensation is unfamiliar, not unsafe. When exhaustion hits, remind yourself, this is integration, not collapse. Overshoot frequency is not a malfunction. It's progress in disguise. Your task is not to avoid it. Your task is to stay conscious inside it. For a while, the old and new frequencies will argue inside you. The old says, shrink. The new says, stand. Each breath you choose is a vote. Not dramatic choices, tiny ones. Loosen your jaw. Uncurl your spine. Feel the floor beneath your heels. These micro-acts anchor a higher timeline, and eventually quietly the body stops protesting. It stops gripping. It stops shrinking. Its vocabulary changes. Safety becomes internal, not situational. And the frequency that once felt overwhelming becomes your resting pulse. That is embodiment. So when you feel the urge to turn back, to sabotage, to numb, to doubt, pause. Smile gently at the trembling in your chest. You are touching a life your ancestors couldn't imagine. You are becoming the one your past selves prayed for. Overshoot frequency is a threshold, a birth canal, a doorway disguised as discomfort. Do not retreat. Breathe deeper. Souffle wieder. Let the surge move through you like a tide. Then one day, without knowing exactly when it happened, you will stand in a room built of frequencies you once feared, and it will feel like home. And from that home, you will rise again, developing the inner signal, where reality truly listens. You can spend years collecting wisdom in your mind. You can highlight every sentence that ever inspired you. Fill journals with dreams. Create beautiful vision boards, covered with glittering futures. You can sit in workshops, repeat mantras, rehearse affirmations. And yet, when you open your wallet and feel your stomach tighten, the universe hears that contraction more loudly than your most poetic wish. Because at the deepest layer of this strange and beautiful existence, the quantum field responds not to language, but to state. It listens through your fascia, through your chest, through the space between your ribs. It hears your breath more clearly than your voice. And when your body whispers danger, no amount of positive thinking can disguise that frequency. You can try to love someone with all the right words, but if your heart is still wrapped in the caution tape of an old wound, the field feels the wall. Connection cannot land where you are subtly defending yourself. You may smile kindly, but if your breath lives shallow in your chest, your vibration betrays your story. Reality is not cruel, but it is honest. It mirrors not your potential, but your practiced energy. That's why life sometimes feels unfair, because what you consciously want might be completely different from what you unconsciously broadcast. The mind points to the horizon, but the body points to yesterday, and the body is louder. You cannot think your way into abundance while feeling scarcity every time you spend $1. You cannot call in intimacy if your nervous system prepares to retreat every time someone gets too close. The universe does not take orders from your imagination. It takes instructions from your embodiment. This is why the most magnetic people you've ever met do not try. They do not clutch for opportunities. They don't chase affection. They move like rivers unforced, receptive, at ease. Their nervous system is not broadcasting need, because waiting beneath the surface is a declaration I do not have. Waiting is emotional scarcity. On the quantum level, the field hears separation. It hears distance. It hears longing. Longing keeps things far. But gratitude, especially gratitude for what has not yet arrived, brings things near. When you close your eyes and give thanks for the love not yet at your door, your body softens. Your heart exhales. Your nervous system stops searching the environment for threat. And because the brain cannot distinguish between memory and vivid imagination, it begins releasing chemistry that matches fulfillment. You feel whole for a moment. You inhabit completion. And completion is the signal that collapses possibility into form. Do not misunderstand, this is not performance gratitude, where you try to force a feeling and then scold yourself for not feeling enough. The universe is not impressed by fake smiles. It hears the trembling underneath. Forced gratitude is still scarcity, wearing makeup. True gratitude is softer. It arrives quietly. Like the moment you realize you no longer need to rush. It does not demand proof. It trusts. Let's look deeper. When you're afraid to spend, you are broadcasting fear of emptiness. When you relax while spending, even modestly, you broadcast confidence in continuation. The field responds by continuing. Continuing is how money stays. When you love with tension in your ribs, you broadcast danger. You tell the field, love hurts me. The field responds by sending mirrors of that belief. But when you love with a relaxed chest, even a little, the field begins rearranging to match the vibration of safety. It is never the action. It is always the state behind the action. You can tell the truth with fear, and the universe responds to fear. You can tell the truth with calm, and reality rearranges around calm. Feel into that. Life is not punishing you. It is simply obedient. And the obedience can feel brutal when your body is loyal to old survival patterns. So the question becomes, how do you change the broadcast? Not through force, not through self-betrayal, not through pretending you feel something you don't. You change your signal through gentle repetition of new emotional habits. The next time you spend money, unclench your stomach, breathe once, smile in your chest, whisper, there is more. Your nervous system will resist. That's okay. It's learning a new song. The next time someone compliments you, instead of rejecting it with humor or deflection, inhale deeply and simply say, thank you. Your ribcage might feel tight. That's okay. Your body is stretching into worthiness. The next time silence enters your relationship, instead of filling it with anxiety, soften your throat. Let the silence feel safe. The universe hears that relaxation as permission for deeper intimacy. Notice how subtle these acts are. Because subtle is where timelines pivot. Most people wait for proof to change state. They say, when I have more money, I'll feel abundant. But abundance is not a number. It's a breath. They say, when I am loved, I will soften. But softness is the doorway through which love enters. Reality follows coherence, not hope. This is why some souls seem blessed. They're not lucky. They're regulated. Their nervous system does not treat blessings like threats. The field mirrors the body's chemistry. When gratitude becomes familiar, receiving becomes normal. And the body only allows what feels normal. This is the secret. Your job is not to chase outcomes. Your job is to normalize the feeling of having them, normalize safety, normalize trust, normalize ease. When the nervous system learns to relax in abundance, abondance arrive. When the nervous system learns to relax in love, love stays. When the nervous system learns to relax in joy, joy returns. Look at children. They don't manifest with vision boards. They manifest through state. They laugh. They play. They trust. Life rushes to join their frequency. Somewhere along the way, we traded regulation for rumination. Come home to the body. Come home to breath. Come home to the warmth between your ribs, because when your body believes you already are, the universe loses its reason to hesitate, and the reflection changes effortlessly, not because you demanded it, not because you mastered perfect thoughts, but because reality heard a different song coming from your heart, returning to the frequency that remembers you. There's something quietly miraculous about the moment you stop trying to force your way out of an old reality and simply stop feeding it. You don't have to break the walls. You don't have to tear anything down. The structures that kept you small were built from the vibration you once lived in. And when you rise into a higher state, those walls lose their architect. They crumble not with noise, but with absence. Old realities are fed by old reactions. They thrive on familiar contractions. They live inside the tension of your shoulders, the doubt behind your breath, the quiet flinch when life offers more than you're used to. But as you soften even shakily, those realities begin to starve. They were never made of stone. They were made of chemistry. When your breath becomes gentler, you send a new broadcast into the field. I am safe enough to expand. When your heart opens, even if it trembles, you whisper, I am ready to receive. When you choose the version of yourself who trusts, your old timeline can no longer hold you. It simply doesn't resonate. All transformation begins with permission, not permission from the world, but from the nervous system. Over the next 24 hours, try one tiny act of rebellion against the old frequency. Speak one kind sentence when silence feels safer. Kindness expands your field. Spend a small amount of money with a breath of fullness instead of fear. Abundance needs familiarity. Sit still for 3 quiet minutes. Inhale with gratitude. Exhale with allowance. Let your chest soften, even slightly. Do not underestimate these gestures. They are not symbolic. They are neurological. They tell your body, we are leaving the old home. And when the body learns safety and expansion, the universe moves mountains to meet you. For decades, you may have believed that the future is built by force, hard work, struggle, tightening your grip until your knuckles turn white. But creativity in the quantum field doesn't respond to strain. It responds to coherence, to the gentle hum of someone who is done begging and finally ready to remember. Because you are not inventing the life you want. You are remembering the frequency that already belongs to you. The soul doesn't dream randomly. It dreams familiarly. It dreams of rooms it has walked through before. This is why, when you glimpse your highest timeline, it feels like déjà vu, a quiet recognition, like seeing a friend across the room you haven't met yet. And so the question is never, how do I create it? The real question is, how do I become the one who would live there? When you become that person, even in 1% increments, the field shifts. People treat you differently. Opportunities smell you before they see you. Coincidences start lining up like stepping stones across a river you once feared to cross. It isn't magic. It is resonance. You may feel the tug of the old frequency trying to pull you back. Anxiety may flare. Doubt may whisper. The nervous system will beg you to return to what it knows. This is not failure. This is the border. Breathe there. Stay there. Let the body learn it won't die from joy. The truth is simple, and it has always been gentle. You are not here to perform hope. You are here to embody remembrance. So lean into the tiny, almost invisible choices that honor your becoming. Smile at the version of you who once clung to survival. They carried you far enough to reach this threshold. But now, survival is too small. You are graduating into expression. The universe does not respond to waiting. Waiting is a broadcast of absence. Stand in your chest. Soften your jaw. Let your breath fall open like curtains to the morning sun. Feel the version of you who already exists in a different timeline. Notice how they breathe. Notice how they walk. Borrow their posture. And as you do, watch how life rearranges itself quietly around you. Watch how old doors melt, closed, and new ones open without effort. Watch how people treat you like you've changed, even before you speak. That's because you have frequency shifts long before behavior follows. Remember this gently. You are not forcing the future into existence. You are remembering the frequency your soul once called home. And as you return to it, reality has no choice but to recognize you. The universe doesn't answer those who wait. It answers those who have quietly, steadily, breath by breath, become